Aristotle, the ancient Greek philosopher and scientist, and perhaps one of the greatest intellectual figures of Western history, said, "The aim of art is to represent not the outward appearance of things, but their inward significance." It probably never occurred to you as you begin watching a video about formatting multiple worksheets that Aristotle would enter into the discussion. But I'd like to consider his thought about appearances and apply it specifically to its relevance in Excel. Far too often, Excel users overlook formatting. After all, the argument kind of goes that the integrity of the data is most important, not how it appears. And I would be the last person to argue with at least the first part of that point. However, you have to remember that formatting is not just for the sake of appearance. As Aristotle proposed, it actually is an essential component of worksheets, as it helps us recognize and understand data's significance. If it's a total, for example, for a column or a row, maybe it appears in bold. If it's a negative value, maybe it appears in red. If it's outside of an acceptable range, maybe it appears with a certain fill or a border to draw our attention to it. If data is to be understood and clearly communicated, the application of formatting moves beyond just making it visually pleasing and takes on added importance as a way of indicating its significance. Of course, formatting is a skill that's covered in basic Excel training or just from your own use, so we won't be duplicating all of the basic formatting skills here. What we will do is take a look at why formatting is so important when data becomes more complex and how it can be efficiently applied across multiple worksheets. So, what you need to know is how to apply formatting to grouped worksheets, how to save formatting as a custom style, how to apply styles to data, how to apply conditional formatting to multiple worksheets, and how to create a quick formatting macro. Besides being boring, without formatting, anything but the simplest worksheets can become nothing more than a blur of data, a bunch of labels and values. Adding even simple formatting helps to communicate the information that's being communicated more clearly. If you are working with multiple worksheets, especially those that are laid out the same way, then it only makes sense to define formatting once and have it applied to all of the sheets at the same time. That is the most efficient and most consistent way to produce a polished, professional, understandable product. Building on that basic concept is where you can really start to see the advantages. Not only might you want to apply exactly the same formatting across worksheets, you may need to use that same set of formatting in the future. You may routinely create the same basic worksheets and workbooks, maybe for specific projects, clients, maybe for locations or product lines or even accounting periods. Styles allow you to apply that same formatting consistently and with just a few clicks or taps, and you won't have to try to recall if your labels were 14 or 18 point and other seemingly trivial properties. All the benefits of formatting multiple worksheets at one time also apply to being able to reapply formatting through styles. Now, I think we all recognize right now that worksheets contain values. But what's also important to realize is that worksheets often contain values that are either incorrect or otherwise need some type of special attention. The more data you have, and the more it's dispersed across multiple worksheets, the more time-consuming it becomes, and the more likely errors or oversights with identifying these values will occur. Instead of working sheet by sheet to manually identify and then format values you want or need to draw attention to, you can designate conditional formatting that will automatically be applied when certain criteria are met. When it comes to saving time, there is nothing better than letting the computer do the grunt work. This not only increases efficiency, it also helps reduce errors and simplifies visual data review. In other words, as you're gazing across row after row and column of values, if the ones that need your attention are somehow formatted differently, your job becomes easier. Now, if formatting helps draw attention to what needs to be understood, and if styles and conditional formatting take those benefits to an even higher level, then macros take you to the pinnacle of automation, efficiency, and consistency. Macros allow you to use all of the techniques and features we've already discussed and apply them repeatedly and consistently, not only across worksheets, but also across workbook files, and all of it again with just a few clicks or keystrokes. Depending on exactly how much data, how many worksheets, and how many workbooks you actually have, as well as how your data is organized and what your data actually is, you'll use these features in different ways and at different levels. Although the benefits of applying formatting to a single worksheet is similar, you now can see why knowing how to do so across worksheets becomes exponentially more helpful and important. The first piece of our structure that we're kind of building here is to consider styles. I like talking about styles. It's probably because it's one of those features that I think is extremely important, but that is also extremely underused and misunderstood. A style is simply a collection of formatting that can be reapplied at different times and in different locations. Styles can be simple, maybe just a font and font size, or they can be extremely complex. In the case of Excel, they can include things like the font size, attributes like bold or italics, the color of the font, the borders, the shading, even horizontal and vertical alignment, rotation, and cell protection. Now, all versions of Excel support creation and storage of styles. They've really been around for a very long time, although I find a lot of people didn't really know about them, especially in earlier versions of Excel. But in later versions, you have access to this wonderful predefined gallery of cell styles from which you can choose as well. Styles are basically composed of any of the elements you can apply to cells on your worksheet. Anything that you get from the Format Cells dialog is an interesting way to look at it. What's important to understand is that you do not have to designate every property. Attributes that you designate with the style will replace existing properties. For example, if your style includes changing the font to red, then whatever the color of the font was before, when the style is applied, the font will now become red. Attributes not specifically defined by the style will retain their original properties. So if your style designates a red cell font with yellow fill, but does not designate anything about the borders, then when the style is applied, the border will retain whatever it was when it originally started. In other words, the style will modify the font and the fill, but leave the border alone. This makes creating styles easier and their application more widely usable because you only have to worry about the specific attributes you're interested in applying. Basically, anything you can apply as it relates to formatting can either be included or specifically excluded when you create a style. This includes things like the number format, symbols, decimals, color, the alignment, both vertical, horizontal, and rotation within the cell, the font and all of the related attributes to the font like bold, italics, and underline, the border, including the location, the weight, the color, and the line style, the fill of the cell, like the color, the tint, and the pattern, and even cell protection, including if it's locked and or visible. If you want a style you can apply anytime you want to make text red with an orange fill, simply deselect the remaining attributes, and things like borders and protection remain untouched. The benefit of not having to remember all of the specific settings or take the time to apply them individually, or having to create a style for each font you may use, becomes apparent fairly quickly as you work. You can take your basic formatting skills and extend them across worksheets without doing any more work than it would take to format a single worksheet. Defining those properties in a style then lets you reapply that same formatting effortlessly, not only one time, but time and time and time again. In part 2 of this topic, we'll continue to expand the benefits that we've already seen by using styles through the use of conditional formatting and macros.